Hi everyone, this is Mary from StudioUs, bringing you another project that you can do right at home. Today we're going to be drawing a rocket in outer space, and we're going to be coloring with some colored pencils. As always, I have my drawing paper ready to go, a pencil, a pearl eraser, and a Sharpie. I went ahead and I marked the center of my page as a sort of guide, and I dotted in our first shape. Let me walk you through it. So I went ahead and I marked the top of my rocket. We're gonna get that first sort of body of the rocket in there. So go ahead and mark the point, and it's going to be a sort of rounded point or a rounded triangle at the top before it curves down and outward to two corners. And then again, back down. So once you go ahead and mark those corners in that top, and you know how far out it comes, go ahead and get that first shape in. Very good. Up next, we're going to add our two wings that come out of the bottom of our rocket. So these are going to start from these two corners that we've made here. And pay attention to the angle at which that line comes outward. It looks like for this wing on the right side of our rocket, it's going to come down and out just a little, maybe like this, and it's going to come outward. Now it is going to get a little bit wider as it comes up. There's a little bit more space here or width here before it curves back into the body of our rocket. So I'm going to mark where it meets. I'm going to go ahead and draw a line outward. Again, remember it comes out a little bit more towards the top before it curves back in to the body of our rocket. If that looks correct, go ahead and draw it in. Very good. I'm going to clean up some of those lines I made. Very good. Next, over here, same thing. Mark how far out it comes. Pay attention to the angle. It's going to be a little straighter than that. Again, it's going to come up a little bit wider as it comes upward. And it looks like it's going to meet right about here. So it's going to come over and up, just like that. Perfect. All right, once you've got the outer wings of your rocket, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a flame down at the bottom of our rocket. So for this flame, it's going to come out to a few points before it comes and meets at a rounded point down here. So I'm going to mark how far down I think this flame comes. I think it's going to be right about there, maybe a little higher actually. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark where the edges of that flame start. And I'm going to go ahead and draw some dots. So it's going to come out before it comes back in slightly. We have a point there. It's going to come out one more time. Again, one more point. And then it's going to come out and down into a rounded point down here. Once you bring it back up, again, same thing as on this side. It's going to come out to a point, back in, out to a point, and back in. Perfect. Go ahead and draw that in. Very nice. We're going to do another flame inside of our first one, and it's essentially the same shape that you've made, just smaller, right? So make sure you have enough room inside, but go ahead and just repeat the lines that you've made. Very good. We're gonna add some details on our rocket. We're gonna start by drawing a slightly curved line. It's gonna curve slightly upward for the top of the rocket here. There's not a ton of space at the top. I'm just gonna mark that space right there. Perfect. I'm going to skip over the circle for just a minute, and I'm going to put this sort of stripe we have here that's going to help me draw the circle later. So go ahead, again, slightly curved, and a second line is going to be a stripe. They're going to match up. Make sure it's at the appropriate space. Pay attention to how much space is from this first line we made to that stripe. Go ahead and draw it in. Excellent. And then we have another stripe down here. This one is actually curved downwards just slightly. Pay attention to where it is in relationship to these outside wings. Looks like it's going to be right about here. I'm going to curve it downward, just like that. And again, second line. Go ahead and connect those. Perfect. Finally, we can go ahead and do our circle. Now, just like our flame, it's one big circle with a slightly smaller circle inside of it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw in that big circle. Want to make sure that it's accurate and nice and round. That looks pretty good to me. I'm going to go ahead and draw that in. And then I'm going to do a slightly smaller circle. Make sure that it's the same width all the way around, right? We want to make sure that that's the right size. Go ahead and draw that in. Very good. Our rocket looks great so far. So we're going to start actually getting into the background now. To start, we're going to have a nice sort of curved line here that's going to indicate the Earth. It suggests that it's that sphere, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark where that starts. It looks like it's going to start right about here, and it's going to come curve this way. Now, it's going to be behind this flame, but while you're drawing it, if you want to sort of lightly continue on top of the flame, go ahead and do that. We want to make sure that the line stays consistent. So it's going to curve around like this. Again, remember, it's going through that flame and coming back down this way. Perfect. I'm going to round this out just a little more. Very good, and once that's correct, go ahead and draw it in. Nicely done. And then we have tiny little circles indicating our stars. Now they're about the same shape all the way around. Try your best to put them where they belong. It's helpful if you can measure them based on where your rocket is. So I see one here that's not too far from this wing. We're going to go ahead and we are going to add the actual shapes that indicate the land masses on top of the Earth. So they're kind of jaggedy lines, so they're not going to be perfect, but do your best in drawing them, right? We have a mass here and then another one here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a light sort of dotted line to help me figure out where this shape is going to go. It's going to go right up here, and then we have another one over here that's going to come downward. Again, just giving myself a light little line. So now I can go back in, and I'm going to talk myself through the sort of bumps and waves in this shape. Looks like it's going to come down slightly before we have two little bumps, and then it curves up and back down again before hitting our flame. It's going to come down, up, and down, and up again. Perfect. And then for this shape over here, it's going to curve down and out, and down, out. Perfect. That looks great. Clean up any lines that you might need to. Excellent. And then finally, we're going to add some stars. Now, draw the stars however you learned how to. I'm going to do the sort of continuous line, and I'll show you how I'm going to get rid of the inside of that line. So, I see a star up here, go up, down, over, across, and back down, just like that. So now that we've drawn our rocket in outer space, we can go ahead and take our Sharpie and go over the lines we drew. When you take your Sharpie and you go over all of the lines that you've drawn, what you're going to do is you're going to just Sharpie the outside of the star. Once you finish Sharpieing, you're going to take your pearl eraser and you're going to erase all of the pencil lines that you've drawn, all of the ones that are left. And it'll go ahead and erase the inside of the star for us. So go ahead and do that. If you drew it without the insides, no problem. All right, now that we've gone over all of our pencil lines with our Sharpie and eraser, we can go ahead and get started with coloring. So we're going to be using colored pencils, and we're going to start with our background. So our sky is a nice, beautiful dark blue. So I'm going to take this blue colored pencil. I'm going to push a medium amount, going to use a medium amount of pressure. You're going to see a little bit of white through the paper still, but that's okay. And I'm going to fill in the entire sky with this blue. Be careful not to go over the stars, our little circles, or the rocket or planet itself, okay? So I'm gonna start by actually going around my objects. It's gonna slow me down. Go ahead and fill that in, and then we'll be ready to move forward. All right, once you get that background colored in, you can go ahead and take a purple colored pencil, and we're gonna add a few sort of sections of purple. As you can see, there's sort of a band up here and a band down here. That's just gonna help us layer up that background, that sky, and make it look nice and dense and like outer space. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to draw a light line where I see that purple sort of shade in here. Now, don't treat it like a chunk of color per se, or like a block of color. Make it look very fluid and make it sort of blend into that background. I see another one down here. So I'll show you how I'm gonna color this. I'm going to push a medium amount, but I'm not going to have clean, hard edges. I am going to make a nice sort of fluid line like this, and those are going to be my edges. So go ahead, make those nice sort of loose lines for your edges, and then after you do that, you can go ahead and fill in the middle. Now that we've got those purple sections in our sky, that looks really great, we can go ahead and color in our earth. So I'm going to take a light blue now, and I'm going to mark off where I see that sort of light blue highlight. So there's a highlight here, it's just a much lighter blue, and then the rest of this shade in here for the water is this light blue. So I'm going to push extra light right here, barely hitting that paper. And then I'm going to push harder and fill in the rest of our water. All right, perfect. Now that we've got our water filled in, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to take a light green and a dark green, and I'm going to color in our sort of sections of land on the earth. So again, there's a highlight towards the top here, and I'm gonna go ahead, it's kind of following the same line as that light blue, that little highlight section we already did. I'm gonna go ahead and block that in, and I'm gonna use my light green to fill it in. Excellent. Then I'm going to take my dark green and I'm going to fill in the rest of our land. So now we can go ahead and color our rocket. One thing that I forgot is that this window here on our rocket shows through to our background. So I'm going to take the blue that I used for our background and I'm going to color in that circle. Excellent. And now I'm going to fill in the red parts of our rocket. So we have a sort of normal red, a highlight, I'm going to use pink for our highlight, and shadows, I'm going to use a dark red for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to block in the pink highlights first, wherever you see them. You mostly see them on the left side of our rocket, again, only in the red sections. So I see a highlight here on the wing. And I see a highlight all along this side as well. All right, very good. Now I'm going to take our red, our sort of regular baseline red, and I'm going to fill in the rest of our red parts of our rocket. Go ahead and fill in the rest, make sure not to go over those highlights. All right, now that we've got the rest of the red colored for our rocket, we can take our dark red and we can go ahead and block in those shadows. You're gonna push a little extra hard for this since they are shadows and we are going over the red that we already drew. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark in this section over here on the left wing. It looks like there is a shadow over here. I see a shadow over here as well. It's along the bottom and then up on the right side of our rocket. I see another shadow over here on the right wing, along the side and the bottom. And then again, up the side. So next we can finally start adding our final touches on our rocket. I have 3 different yellows here. I have a lemon yellow or a light yellow, a sort of regular yellow, and more of a gold. I'm going to use this lemon yellow for the highlights. So I'm going to go ahead and mark anywhere I see highlights on the flame and then on our yellow stripes on our rocket. So I see a highlight here on the left side of our flame. I'm pushing very, very lightly. And I just see it right there on the edge. Very good. And there's a highlight on the left side of our rocket as well. It's sort of in line with this pink highlight we have here. And then right at the top. Very good. Next, I'm going to take my medium yellow and I'm going to fill in the rest of our yellow sections. Excellent. Up next, we're gonna go ahead and take our goldish yellow. We're gonna push extra hard and we're gonna get those shadows in. So again, the shadows are mostly going to be on the right side of our yellow sections. So I see a shadow over here by our flame. On the right side of our rocket, again in line with our red shadows. And up here at the top of our rocket. And then on the right side of our window. Perfect. I'm going to take a light orange and a dark orange now, and I'm going to fill in the orange part of our flame. I'm going to take my light orange and I'm going to push very lightly for the highlights over here. Before I take that same light orange, I'm going to push harder and I'm going to fill in the rest of that flame before we put the shadow in. Very good. Next, I'll take my darker orange, and I'm going to fill in the shadows on the right side of the orange part of our flame. Excellent. Last but not least, we're going to take our regular yellow and we are going to color in the stars. Keep these tiny circles white, and that'll be it. All right, and that's our rocket in outer space. Thanks for tuning in, and check in with StudioUs soon for more projects. Stay safe.